Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, it's an early time slot for us today, but we've got a very interesting show for everybody. We're going to talk to Chuck Costas from Prop Store about a charity auction that they're hosting that's to benefit a scholarship program over at the Ringling Institute of Art here in Sarasota, Florida. So I'm not going to leave Chuck in the green room any longer because we've only got an hour and a half to talk. So, hey, Chuck, how are you?
It's great to be back, Bill. It's great to be back. Thanks for hosting us today. And as you say, yeah, this is to benefit Ringling College, which is down there in Florida with you. So, um,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
my daughter actually took a program there last summer, a month-long program.
Oh,
Very great school. We got to tour it, and I wish I could have spent some more time there. Really checking into all the facilities that they have. But it's a very nice school.
awesome. What course did she take? What
She
skills
took
did
an
she build?
Well, I'll say because they have to take two majors. She took illustration and gosh, I can't think of what the other one was now. Because what did she draw? I don't remember what the other one was, but it was illustration and something else. So it was 2 weeks of one curriculum and 2 weeks of another. She had to live on campus, so it was a good experience for her since she's a senior in high school this year. So it was kind of her first, deep dive into a kind of a college-like program.
Well, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us that are out there, I always wanted to be a comic artist or, be an illustrator. I had a minor in fine arts, and going to a place like Ringling would be a dream. I think Mike Zeck was I guess, probably their best known alumni that worked in the comic book field, and obviously I worked to put together the Mike Zeck exhibit that happened last year at Ringling College, and they're a great sponsor of the arts, and they're really looking forward. That Mike Zeck exhibit was really popular, and we're actually looking to do a follow-up show on another topic, which we can talk about in a little bit. But Ringling's been great, I think, for both students and just support of comic books, comic art, the illustrative, and the narrative. Just a wonderful college, and glad to do this auction to help support them.
Exactly, and they've got an
So,
incredible staff too. George
hi,
Pratt.
Thomas. Good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas is in the chat. George Pratt's an educator there. John Foster. I mean, they have a lot of impressive instructors there. I mean, it's a great school to go to. I'm sure anyone who's lucky enough to get into it really feels rewarded by the experience because it isn't a college that just everybody gets into. It's a limited amount of students they can bring in every year, and again, you have access to some incredible people who've been in our hobby, as well. And I can't imagine having George Pratt as my painting instructor.
Yeah, and I know when I was there, and they have great gallery spaces as well. I know once a year they do an art walk, and I would encourage anybody that's around Sarasota or looking for something to do down in Sarasota to actually participate in their art walk, because you get to see a whole bunch of different exhibits that are going on that week. But one of the instructors that I was introduced to was the ghost artist on Garfield.
Wow.
I know there's a lot of Garfield out there, but it was kind of interesting to sort of meet somebody that was actively sort of working in the field, but also teaching there and working in the comic strip world.
Very cool. Well, so how did Prop Store get involved handling this particular auction that is going towards a scholarship, award in the artist's name?
Yeah. So when I was doing the Mike Zeck exhibit down there, I spent a good amount of time at the exhibit, and then when we wrapped up, when I was wrapped up there, they mentioned to me, like, by the chance, do you know anybody that wants to host an animation auction? And I was like, we can talk about Prop Store doing that. Give me a little bit more context. And they mentioned that Iwao Takamoto, he passed away back in 2007, but there was a foundation started in his name. And what he really wanted to do as part of his legacy was give back. And so he had donated his collection to Ringling College to be sold, so that it could benefit future students and be sold to fund the scholarship fund. So it's taken a while. It's been, he passed away in 2007, and the collection has been sitting there for 16 years at this point in time. And so I was really excited by it. And it turned out that Iwo was actually a native Los Angeles. And so when they mentioned where the collection was, it's actually on my drive home from Prop Store to my house. I could actually go and visit with the gentleman who runs the Takamoto Foundation. So I was able to collect everything here in Los Angeles, curate it, and put it together as an auction here. So it was very exciting. And for me, I hadn't been exposed to Iwo, even though he was a local artist here. So for me, it was a great sort of fun experience of learning about a great animation artist that I frankly didn't know much about. There's probably people out there, and I'd love for people to chime in that may have had some personal connection to Iwao to tell us some stories about it as we go through. But I was able to read. He actually put out a book, and unfortunately, he passed away right before the book was about to come out. So he died in 2007, but he finished this up in 2006. And so this book here, My Life with 1,000 Characters, was written and gives a great context for anybody that's interested in hearing more stories about his career and what he worked on. But I can summarize some of the things that I read when I was going through the book. So there's about 145 lots that we were able to assemble. It's a combination of personal drawings that he had, but a lot of Hanna-Barbera. And we'll talk about his career and sort of where he went. But I think he was best known, and if the top line is that he was the sort of co-creator of Scooby-Doo. And I think that's what he was best known for. But really the driving force behind Hanna-Barbera and a lot of the characters that were created for Hanna-Barbera. So as we go through our session today, I'll be happy to point out characters that he helped co-create or he had a hand in help in creating. And I'm sure there's some great stories out there in the comic art fans universe around different other animators that he influenced or contributed to this as well.
Well, I know one of the lots has, it's got a piece that has a lot of his co-workers' signatures on it. He seemed to be a pretty well respected and loved person within the studios at Hanna-Barbera.
And I think that's the one thing, you hear different things about different artists over time. I don't think anybody could had a negative thing to say about Iwao. I think he was one of these people that, based on what I could see, he could crank something out, and it's sort of like Kirby. He could do it very quickly, but it was fantastic. He was one of the great creators of it. So he was a workhorse, but also just a great person all around, from what I can tell.
Very good. Sorry, I was looking at one thing on the broadcast, but yeah, that was the thing that I kind of took away from it too. That his tenure. I mean, he was born in 1925, so his time in this business was pretty extensive, and he did touch a lot of creators, which was pretty impressive. As far as
I think he did. Yeah, I think he, as he said, he started. Well, let's go a little bit into his career, Bill. I know you've got a few slides, and we've got a few lots in the auction itself that talk about his career. And just to give people again a sort of a sample of what's in the auction, this is his personal collection. So these are the things that he kept. There's a lot of items that he had hanging on his wall. A lot of these items are framed. So when you look at these, keep in mind that they're already framed. These are the ways that they were sort of presented in Iwao's house. But they talk about his life. There's things from his personal life that we'll see, whether it be awards that he has or personal pictures of himself, or as you mentioned, there are things that were given to him by the Hanna-Barbera staff or other, like I think PDI was another group that he worked with. But then there is also a number of different black and white sketches that we'll be able to show there that are sort of like convention sketches that he had done towards the end of his life, as well as a bunch of different limited edition cells. But let's delve into some of the personal things here. So Iwao, as I mentioned, he grew up in Los Angeles, and I think when you think about the time that he grew up, he was Japanese American, so he was second generation. And at the time, it was World War II. And what I didn't realize so much was that it wasn't all over the United States that they were putting people into internment camps that were Japanese American. It was really the West Coast. And strangely enough, even in Hawaii, which is where Pearl Harbor happened. Excuse me, sorry, I'm not speaking so great today, but Pearl Harbor happened in Hawaii. The Japanese Americans in Pearl Harbor weren't asked to go into internment camps, while the ones on the West Coast, such as Los Angeles, were asked to go into internment camps. So Iwao and his entire family, as well as the community around him, were all put in I think it's the Manzanar internment camp, which is where he was for a number of years. And one thing that they noticed when he was, in the internment camp and even before, as a young child, he would just love to draw, and that was very evident. And I think he learned to perfect his skills of drawing when he was in the internment camp. And when he came out, and then I think he was in the internment camp for three or so years. When he came out, he had sort of built a portfolio of artwork that he could use. And I think there's stories in there around how, when he got out, he really wanted to be a Disney animator, and he was going in sort of blindly into how do you become an animator. And so he didn't even know what a portfolio was. So he really kind of quickly put together a sketchbook of different things. And he's competing with all these sort of well-known, well-established people that had gone to art school and walking into the Disney studios. And, I think people were able to see the fact that he was able to put these quick sketches together. That's what you want in an animator. And so he actually got a job early on with Disney. And was used as, and Bill, I don't know if you've got some of the sort of life of Iwao. He was used as sort of the example of the sort of what a Japanese American person that was in internment camp could do after they left. And so they used his photo as one of the sort of propaganda of like, here's how you can move on from your life in the internment camp into having a really great job like working at Disney. So he became a sort of model of what could be for the rest of America when he came out of that. Iwao went on, I think he was known for a bunch of different projects. He got to work on things like Sleeping Beauty and other things, but what he was best known for at Disney was having redesigned the lady for Lady and the Tramp, and he got to draw all the different things. And the thing that I learned about animation is you sort of step into it as sort of a novice, where there's a main animator that will lay out things, and then there are people that will build. They call them the in-betweeners, where they will draw the sequences that are in between the main sequences that they scope out as far as the animation. And so I think he sort of worked his way up from sort of filling in some of the drawings to becoming an in-betweener to becoming a full-fledged animator throughout his career, but did his time on that. And I think, Bill, what you're showing now, here's one of the lots, lot 107. This talks about his history. So I think the first picture in there shows him in the internment camp. He was also on the baseball team, I believe, at Disney. And I think if you look really closely, you'll find a picture of Roy Disney in there. That second picture there is really the one that they would use to promote him as a famous Disney animator that was used for showing what people could be. And then there's a number of different projects that you see there. So, and Bill, you can probably see some of those. But in 1960, he moved on to work for what was a new fledgling studio called Hanna-Barbera. And that's if you can move over to the next one, we start sort of his Hanna-Barbera career. But yeah, we can take a look at those. So there's 101 Dalmatians that you see there, a number of key projects that was working on sort of in the 40s and 50s, primarily the 50s, I would say there. And then in 1960, he moved on to work at Hanna-Barbera. I believe he started working on the Flintstones was one of his first assignments there. But in 1969, he got the opportunity to help co-design Scooby-Doo, and so they were in the process of figuring out some new cartoons that they wanted to do. And what you have to remember is also that there was a big shift going on in the animation world from these features, which Disney was well known for, to television animation, and the number of scenes or a number of drawings that they had to draw per minute was actually about half as much for television. So it wasn't quite as intensive on that. And they were trying to do it quicker, cheaper, faster. And that's what Hanna-Barbera was all about. But they had to come up with new properties. And so one of the first that he wasn't as involved in, and I think folks like Alex Toth were involved in, was things like Johnny Quest. And you had Doug Wildey that was actually with Johnny Quest. And I think Johnny Quest was a precursor to Scooby-Doo. And and when they looked at Scooby-Doo, I think part of what they had to solve for is they had all these kids. They had this idea of doing the detective work, but they needed something to glue it together. And this idea of bringing a dog into it actually came from Johnny Quest. And you remember they had Bandit. And so Bandit was really the glue that sort of helped bring Johnny Quest together. They looked at the same thing and said, let's try to do that with Scooby-Doo. And although Scooby-Doo was a different concept, what Iwao had the foresight to say is, instead of making this perfect dog, let's take everything instead of having a small dog like Bandit, let's have a big dog like a Great Dane. That's about as big of a dog as you can get. And instead of making it like a fun looking dog, let's take everything. Let's look at the 5 things that make a Great Dane a perfect Great Dane, and then let's flip it on its end. And so you'll notice his legs are super wonky, his head's is kind of out of shape. So he took everything and sort of changed it, and it seemed to work. And especially from a comedic standpoint, it really worked and actually became the glue that held Scooby-Doo, Where Are You together. So this team was formed in 1969, was sort of an instant hit for Hanna-Barbera, and that's what he was really known for.
And you're wearing a Scooby-Doo shirt tonight. I think
I am, and in honor of this, I'm not sure this was actually drawn by Iwao, but I've got my mystery machine here. Showing off my great chest there, Bill. I don't know if that's really what we want to show off. But you can see actually over here, this is the very first concept drawing of Scooby-Doo. Now, the version that we have here is actually a lithograph reprint of it that is shown, but that was taken from the very first concept drawing that he had done for Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, which is what that actually is right over there. And that one's signed by Iwao, Bill Hanna, and Joe Barbera, and numbered on those. But yeah, so Scooby-Doo, and we'll talk more about Scooby-Doo, I'm sure, throughout there. There's different rumors and other things that are addressed in the book. But moving on for the timeline here is he also was responsible for other projects. This one is Wacky Races. And I think when they pitched this idea of Wacky Races with all these different characters that were in these boats, and I believe there are other folks I believe Jerry Eisenberg was one of the person that created the different characters for this. But when they pitched it to the executives, one of the things they said is, this is great, but there are no women and there's no female characters in all the Wacky Races. And so he sort of stepped out of the room, came up with this idea of Penelope Pitstop, repitched the idea, and that really solidified this idea of the Wacky Races coming together. And Penelope Pitstop became one of the key characters that everybody remembers from the Wacky Races on there.
Sure.
And then moving down, you've got projects like Charlotte's Web. So E.B. White, the famous book on this, they wanted to adapt this for animation, and he was I believe the producer or director, for this. And so he had to come up with the concept. I guess one of the things he said was, how do we make the spider likable? And so I think he spent a lot of time designing it, bringing her eyes to life, really making her a character that people weren't afraid of, but were sort of invited by, and actually became a focal point for that. So another great project that Iwao was responsible for. So I didn't see, it's interesting. They have the banana splits here, which is the one in the bottom middle. I didn't see any mention of the banana splits in the book, but I assume he had a role in that as well. And then Hong Kong Phooey, where we do have a Hong Kong Phooey piece in there, but I think he contributed to a lot of the different Hanna-Barbera characters.
Well, I wonder how many artists were actually in the studio at a given time. I mean, who are at more of the planning stages or the evolution of the characters before they actually got to see them actually animated. I mean, how many guys do you think were working at Hanna-Barbera at that level?
I don't know. I mean, it was interesting. They in the book they go over him working for the 9 Old Men over at Disney. And I think he was especially friends with Mark Davis. And working in those offices, and it was funny because I think they said he got a better office than some, and there was a pecking order as to which offices or where you actually got to sit in some of these offices. I got the sense, and again, people out there may know better than I do. It's just it's kind of like what we think about with the Marvel bullpen. I believe the Hanna-Barbera place was probably very similar in that way, where you had a whole bunch of artists sort of working. I'm sure it was a little bit more spread out. It probably wasn't as crammed as a New York space was. But I would imagine, again, they're working on sort of tight budgets. Everything's kind of working in a very fast pace. They're trying to churn these things out. So, people are sitting there in front of their boards, just cranking out different ideas and designs.
Well, they were pretty zany. I mean, the banana splits were always, I mean,
they were wacky. I don't know what came up with.
I enjoyed it. Kind of like Stigman and the Sea Monster, right? I mean, those were kind of off the wall from that same kind of period. But no, I mean, I was born in '68, so all this is in my sweet spot. I grew up watching these cartoons all the time. So. Yeah,
it's funny when I look at sort of comic book and what was going on in Marvel at the time and what was going on here is they were very Hanna-Barbera was very astute at looking at the different sort of key things that were going on in pop culture and trying to bring those to the animated world, where Marvel was looking at, themes like, it's like, hey, what can we do with Luke Cage, or what's going on with Iron Fist? Iron Fist, it was, martial arts are becoming very popular, so let's have a martial arts character. It was the same thing here, where they were looking and saying, hey, we need to fill this spot of pop culture because we believe this is a trend that we're seeing going on in the 60s and 70s that we need to fill and sort of drive. And they did. And the banana splits, to me, sort of scream to that. I mean, the colors and everything else like that, very 70s in my mind.
Well, Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky mentions that he freelanced for Hanna-Barbera back in the day. That's pretty cool, Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky. We should chat about that sometime on a show.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a note of that.
Very cool.
But yeah,
and
so
cool.
Would you like to go through the lots?
Yeah, let's go through other stuff that we've got here. As far as maybe we talk about some of the creations, as I touched on here. We've got different things in the auction that are creations that he had, and I think if I was, the way I want people to think about this auction is it's a way that we're not competing with the heritage auction that you're about to hear from, which is going to be the next show here. We're not trying to sell anybody $1 million pieces or $100,000 pieces. That's not what we have in this auction. This is really the remnants of, this is the last things that Takamoto had in his collection, the very last sketches, the things that he had kept for himself that we're auctioning off. And he really wanted to do this to raise money for the next generation of artists. So think about it as giving back to a worthy cause. If you wanted to donate to a cause, if you're a fan of comic book artists, this is a way of sponsoring for them, and you get a really cool piece of artwork, whether it be an animation cell or a drawing or other things like that to take home for your contribution. I think that's the great way of doing that. And also just getting a piece of, one of the people that was one of the great animators, especially for Hanna-Barbera. So Scooby-Doo, I think, was the character, and we've got a number of different Scooby-Doo items that frankly, he's going to be best known for. Takamoto in the latter part of his career. So if you think about the progression, so he worked primarily for Hanna-Barbera, as I said, but he also then worked for Hanna-Barbera was acquired by Warner Brothers later on. And so we'll talk about this. These are sort of a remnants of his as being an artist, of things that he had accumulated along the way, which I thought was kind of funny because these are reference books. I think one is actually from the Walt Disney Archives and signed by Mark Davis in there. So this is like How to Draw Deers. So these are his artist reference books that were loaned to him, most likely by Mark Davis, who was one of the 9 old men that worked over at Disney back in the day. And you've got things like from Doug Wildey, as I mentioned earlier, who also had done Johnny Quest. And so these were people that were inspirational to him, and things that he could draw. And I think when you look at some of these sketches here, like these elephants, when we show some of his personal sketches, very similar style as far as what he was drawing. So he was obviously learning a lot from these books. So I think it's kind of neat when you can have some of these personal reference books that influence artists, because you can see directly where this is all coming from. And then moving on. So here's, I think I mentioned Jerry Eisenberg there too, who was also working alongside of him over at Hanna-Barbera. And this is a drawing that Jerry had done for him. It looks like a whimsical thing. I haven't met Jerry, although I know Gray Smith, who also works here at Prop Store. He was friends with Jerry. But I assume Jerry's a lot larger than Iwao was, and this kind of shows a little bit of the size and them sort of going and playing together in this region. But I think it's another fanciful drawing that was given to him as a friend and a collaborator over at Hanna-Barbera. Yeah, if people out there have stories about Jerry Eisenberg, you're welcome to share those in the comments as well, which would be kind of cool. But neat little personal drawing that sort of draws you into what was the story behind this? Why did he want it? And then on the back, there's this, there's this like Taurus the bull thing. I'm not quite sure why that was there either, but obviously something that meant something to both of them.
Right.
May have been when he was born, I believe, or something like that. But a lot of these things. And then here, it looks like, as I was looking through this, there's a couple of these things where Iwao seemed to be sick, and this was, a hand-drawn custom animation cell, which is kind of neat, which has Iwo in the background and has all the different Hanna-Barbera characters in the foreground, and has signatures from pretty much everybody that was working probably at the time at Hanna-Barbera, wishing him to come back into the work, including, you've got at the bottom, you've got Joe Barbera there, you've got Bill Hanna in the bottom left, as well as just like a whole bunch of people, probably all the way up to the secretaries and everybody that were in the offices. So, cool in that it's a custom piece of animation that you don't see any other way. It's got Iwo on it, and it's just got all these signatures from all the people that he worked with and cared for him.
And that's fun. I'm sure he was very happy to get that when he got back.
Yeah, and obviously he kept it on his wall, you know, as part of his personal collection too.
Right.
So it obviously meant something to him.
Very nice. Now here we go.
And this one, yeah. So speaking of Scooby-Doo, so this is one of the, I would say the most iconic Scooby-Doo pieces that he ever produced. This was done later for the Warner Brothers, I guess, limited editions. They had turned it into a lithograph, and we actually have a signed limited edition version of this in the auction. I think it's actually an AP of like 1 out of 25. But this was, when he said he did this and he saw the final colored version of it, he was so blown away, and he knew it was going to be an instant hit that he actually he had them run off a whole bunch of extra copies of this. And when he would make personal appearances, he would sign those. And so we actually have some of the prints that are just by themselves unsigned in the auction. I think we have them in groups of 10, but we do have this one. And what you just showed there was a Xerox of the original pencils. And in some cases, it looked like Iwo kept some of the pencils. There are some original pencil pieces that we do have in here. I just want to be clear that this one is a photocopy of it. But then you can see, this was a great design, but the coloring that actually went on top of this really made this thing pop.
Right. Did you see in the chat there that Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky said that they painted the lithograph?
Congratulate that!
We should have had Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky should have been a part of this show today. Had I known
the stories behind the stories, yes,
right, exactly. That's crazy. That's amazing.
Well, Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky, you did a fantastic job bringing this thing to life, and you made Iwo very happy. At least that's what he wrote in the book, is that he just knew that this was going to be a super big hit when he has it. So. Wow. This to me is, you've got all the villains, you've got Scooby-Doo there. What else could you want to hang on your wall than this piece? I think we have that piece over. Oh, no, we have it on. We have it down below, but I can't show. But yeah, this is a nice large piece. Will look great on your wall. And what's interesting is it's signed by Hanna-Barbera down there, and that was the typical way that they would sign these for the Warner Brothers when they would sell at Warner Brothers. But Iwo actually signed most of the prints or most of the cells and prints that we have here have Iwo's additional signature. So he had added that to the pieces that he had done. So that's a little extra bonus for this thing coming from Iwo's personal collection. Well, a great job. Yeah. Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky, fantastic job.
Yeah.
Maybe he's done more. Well, as we go through this,
find out.
We're going to find out how many more of these he actually worked on. And this is an actual original pencil piece in there. So somebody that wants an original pencil piece done by Iwo, a fully quote unquote cover, ready piece. This was done for the Macy's Day Parade. I believe it was the final version of it actually differed from this, but these are Iwo's original pencils for this. And so you've got the whole Scooby-Doo gang with a giant blow up Scooby-Doo in it. But what I love about it is it's finished pencils by Iwo, signed by Iwo. And you can, and this is really we have some roughs in there, but this is the only finished piece. And so this one's, it looks great framed as well. And obviously he felt strongly about it because this is one of the pieces that he kept for himself as well. And Mr. Easy-Go-Lucky, were you able to paint this one as well? Was this one that you worked on, the final piece? We'll find out. But yeah, you can see they're all framed. They're all framed a little bit differently as well, which is also nice. So you will like to vary up the frames on these things, but framed them very nicely.
What was the overall size on this one? Did you know?
It's probably large.
Yeah,
it's roughly like a little bit larger than large art size for comic book collectors.
Right.
So it's a pretty large piece.
It's 2.5 by 2. Yeah, that's pretty decent. At least in
pretty decent size piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, these are cool.
Yeah, and so another famous dog that he was famous for creating was Astro the dog, and so he did work on the Jetsons as well. I believe that was one of his early things, along with Flintstones. He did work on the Jetsons, and one of the new creations was Astro the dog there. And I love, we'll see a number of these different sketches that I have, and here's the size of these things. These are roughly, I don't know if I have the sizes in there, but these are roughly like 4x6. And so Iwao would draw these on sort of regular paper, you can sort of see, but all hand drawn sketches that were there. And what I tried to do when I assemble these into this is I tried to find similar sizes so that when you frame these together, they're going to look great together. So we've got that. We've got Jane, his wife. I love this piece. And of course, Judy Jetson as well. So I tried to put together, different characters that obviously were part of the same family. I tried to put together sort of, sometimes in cases, random things that sort of, if people wanted a variety of different characters. But Iwao drew so many of these different Hanna-Barbera characters that, there's a great selection of them in the auction here.
It's fantastic.
And you can tell, when you look at these, you can tell he was drawing straight from the pen. He wasn't, I don't think he was sketching these things out with pencil first. I think he just was so adept at drawing these things that he could just pull out a pen and start drawing these things.
That's what it looked like to me. I was actually going to mention that to you because you didn't see any pencil lines on any of these sets that you put together. So I thought that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah, we definitely have some pencils that are in here and those roughs. And I think when he did the more finished drawings, obviously he would do probably a rough, a finished pencil, and then they would paint, copy that, and then Mr. Go Lucky would probably paint that in that case. And we do have the Jetsons movie poster a little bit later. I don't know if we're going to show it, but we do have copies of that in the auction. I believe we have one that was framed that was on Iwao's wall that unfortunately got a little bit of sun damage because you knew it was loved and shown. But I believe we have a file copy as well that is part of the poster lot. So we have like 13 different posters that Iwao worked on, including one that was signed by Iwao and I think either Hanna or Barbera, whichever one of them passed away. I forget which one passed away first. But for the Flintstones, the Great Gazoo was a character that he created, who's the upper left-hand corner. So I think everybody recognizes him. So I threw him into the Flintstones lineup here so that you get a great sketch of the Great Gazoo. I think he appears in some of the animation cells as well that we have to sell. But this is a great lot if you're looking for, again, another example of a character that Iwao created himself. And of course, paired with other Flintstones characters here as well. Exactly. Classic Fred there. Classic Fred.
I always tell Maureen that everything I needed to know about marriage, I learned from the Flintstones.
Really?
Sneaking out at night, going to the Water Buffalo Lodge, that sort of stuff.
My parents always told me that they used to watch the Flintstones on prime time, which I always just found, since I was a kid watching, like yourself, was watching cartoons in the morning, always found it interesting that their exposure to cartoons was evening prime time. And that, frankly, a cartoon could sustain that type of audience. And I guess that's because it appealed both to adults as well as kids.
Right.
So this is one of the animation cells. So again, this was one of the Hanna-Barbera, one of the Warner Brothers limited edition cells that was done there. So this is a model sheet, as they would call it here, that was hand painted. And a lot of the animation cells, we didn't necessarily put it in the title that these are hand painted. And we'll talk a little bit more, but there are some Sericels. So Sericels are screen printed, where the hand painting is the black and white art will get copied onto a cell, and then they'll actually go in on the back of it and they will hand paint that. And so most of these are actually hand painted. But again, you got Penelope Pitstop in the upper part there. So again, another character that he created, but you've got all the other wacky racers that are on here as well. So I think this is kind of cool. The only one I believe that we have is kind of like one of those model cells. And then, next I wanted to talk about, there is some production artwork. So he not only did he draw characters, but he drew a number of different backgrounds. And so this was from Heidi's song. We have a number of different drawings, and I can show sort of what these look like. They're actually large, but it's funny, as I looked at these, he would draw very detailed, here's I believe the grandfather's house. And as I was looking at it, this is one of the interiors of the house. I was actually thinking about like, wow, this actually looks a lot like a Gerhard drawing as far as the level of detail that he would go into to draw some of these backgrounds here for this. And we've put these in lots where you get a number of these different backgrounds here, but they're all very detailed in this regard. So you don't think of Iwao's, when you look at those easy to draw Hanna-Barberas, you don't think of how detailed these backgrounds can become and how lifelike they are. But he was able to draw, sort of go to all extremes and draw very realistic to cartoon characters that they would draw for Hanna-Barbera. So we have a number of, especially for Heidi Song, he seemed to have kept a lot of his designs for Heidi Song. There are also some, I think the next one will be maybe some storyboards that he did for a sequence called the Rat Song as well, which also show a slightly different style that you'll see when people are drawing storyboards. So a lot of different, yeah, there it is. So here you can see all the shading and things, and this is, these are very, what I would call very detailed storyboards. These almost look like animation drawings more so than storyboards that you would typically see. And in storyboards, for folks that don't know movies so well, obviously to get a sense of the shot that they want to have, but you typically don't see like shading and sort of the detail that you get into in storyboarding here. But he did some very detailed storyboards, as if they were
Yeah, I thought
final
these were
animation
really
files.
nice. When I was going through these, I was impressed by these. I thought they were really, well done, very finished pieces, and yeah, storyboards. They're great.
Yeah,
It's cool that he was able to get these, right? I mean, you don't think that the artists get these after the fact, too often.
well, they can, yeah. I mean, I've worked with some, I think Mike Vosberg did a lot of storyboards, and
Mhm.
sometimes they get to keep them, sometimes they don't get to keep them. Especially when you work for a big studio like Disney, they will, as part of your contract, not allow you to keep any of that stuff. And so this obviously was for the Hanna-Barbera, but he didn't have much in his collection. A lot of Xeroxes, and we do have some Xeroxes from some of the other projects like Charlotte's Web that he worked on, where you get to see a lot more of the production drawings, but they're not 100%. They're not originals.
Right.
While these are the hand-drawn storyboards for those. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and here's some other things again, sort of showing his range. Here he's drawing some celebrities where you'll recognize that's Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley, back in the
Yeah.
day. This is the Flintstones Holly Rock by Baby, I believe is the movie that this was for. I believe in 1993. Mr. Easy Go Lucky can probably let me know. He may have worked on that background there. So that is just sort of an Entertainment Tonight background that is a reproduction. But these are, you've got John Tesh and Mary Hart in the other one, and you got the Flintstones there as well. So a bunch of different characters make an appearance in there. And Iwao wasn't, yeah, he went in the book. He says he's not much of a caricature artist. He wasn't one to draw likenesses of people very well. But this looks like a fun project where, again, I think he had a pretty lead role in this project. So you got to design some of the guest stars that made appearances in this. Uptown Girl there, Mr. Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah, and other sort of famous. This is Lily Tomlin's character, Edith Ann. For those that remember that, I believe that was a cartoon for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So here a little bit more evocative of just different emotions and different character styles, but again, not the straight style that it's not exactly a Hanna-Barbera character. It was you could see again the range that Iwao had as an artist to draw what was necessary. And no bids on that one yet. So
on that last one,
I don't believe it on that one or the next one, which is yeah. So starting bid. So
got to
if
get
you're an
some
Edith
Lily
Ann fan,
Tomlin.
you're a Lily Tomlin fan, please bid on that.
Exactly.
You get this was a complete set of all the sketches that he had done of Edith Ann, and we've got as you were pointing out, we've got Ed Grimley too. If you're a Martin Short fan, he's I actually saw a Martin Short down at the grocery store one time. The Girl Scouts were trying to get him to buy some cookies, and he was actually he went in the other entrance. I was like, why is Martin Short avoiding the Girl Scouts? That's not very cool. I think he's a nice guy, and I think the work that he's doing right now, he's sort of one of these guys that just has continued to reinvent himself. Always funny, love him. And this was his Ed Grimley character, which was famous on Saturday Night Live. So if you're a Saturday Night Live fan, here you go.
Exactly. And hey, Stanley wanted to know, does Prop Store sell much comic art?
We sell on occasion. A lot of what we focus on, and I guess I probably should talk a little bit about Prop Store's sort of upcoming schedule. We've got our big auction coming up. We do large entertainment auctions in June out of the Los Angeles office, and then in November out of the London office. As part of that, we'll include artwork. There will be some comic book artwork, but a lot of what we will do is also just focus on entertainment artwork. We'll have a lot of things like what we're showing here, which is storyboards, for Batman movies or Superman, things that cross over. And we try to provide a selection of different artwork that crosses over both from movie and television lovers as well as that. On occasion, we will get a large enough collection where we will do a dedicated comic art offering. And very frankly, we'd love, similar to what we've got here, where we get the Takamoto collection and we can put it all together as a dedicated auction. I think what's a little bit different about Prop Store is that we have the flexibility to actually create these custom, I don't call them studio auctions, but dedicated auctions. And if there's somebody out there that's saying, hey, I want to offer my whole collection up, we have done that. And I think Bill and I have done some we've showcased some of the comic art in the past, and I think we will have some comic art auctions we've had some in the past, we will have some in the future, but not necessarily any dedicated ones on the slate in the coming months to look forward to. But I would say check out the June auction. There's going to be some great selection of things. I know we had like the poster art for the Gremlins movie, which was a fantastic piece. So not exactly comic art, but it was just never see something like that as well. But we've offered art in the past. We've offered Kirby and Zek and a number of different great comic book art. Last year we had the bowling Killing Joke, the French Killing Joke piece. So do check out our auctions. We don't necessarily advertise them fully as comic art auctions, and we will try to draw attention to what comic art offerings we do have in some of our auctions by doing either dedicated sessions here or posting on Comic Art Fans, because we know that's really the way to get the word out to comic art fans like everybody here.
That's true. Yeah, I remember previewing those last pieces. The Gremlins piece was amazing. I mean, there was a lot of great pieces in there, and and we have a lot of people who collect. That's more kind of on the illustration or advertising side of the world. But there are a lot of those collectors on campus, as we all know. So
and people like Wrightson the world's crossed over. There's a lot of artists that did work in both. But we've got greats like Ron Cobb that we regularly get artwork from, that we're working on the Conan movies, as well as things like Back to the Future. But yeah, we do a little bit of both, and like I said, you'll find some hidden gems in some of our comic art offerings. And I know we will have some comic art offerings, but may not be as robust as some of the dedicated auctions that we've done in the past, where we've done either comic art and toys together. But we try to do that. And like I said, I'd love if there's somebody out there that's always wanted to sort of curate an auction and work with us. More than happy to try to curate and work with people out there to bring that to market, because what I love to do is frankly serve this community and give great opportunities for people to buy things.
Hear, hear. Me too.
Yeah. I know, Bill. I know you're working hard to do it every day.
A little too hard sometimes, but yeah, let's keep looking at this stuff here. What do we got next? Some
Jetsons. Yeah. So this is another limited edition cell on that. That is a photocopy of the pencils that come with this one. But you can see that. I love the whimsical. It's a very whimsical piece. And again, I believe the regular version of this is not signed, and then this one is actually signed by Iwao. So you get something a little bit of a bonus, even though I believe this is a Sarah cell. So this is not a hand painted cell, but it is a silk screen cell. But still cool looking and very vibrant.
And that is an authentic signature on it, though.
Those are authentic signatures. Yes, those are Iwao's. It's stamped by the studio or Iwao Studio, but also has his hand-drawn signature on there, which you're not going to get all the time. And for those that like Flintstones, this is one of the pieces that we have there. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about is there are different things. As I said, the last one was a Saracel. This is a EP. So this is actually numbered, I believe, EP 1 out of, if you go in after 1 out of 10. So EP stands for Executive Presentation Cell. So when we look at the auction, what I think is very cool about it is that you're getting Iwao's personal copies, and they're rarer than the regular edition. In fact, I don't think we have any that are the standard edition that you could have bought at the Warner Brothers store. The either they have the extra things that have his signature, like the Saracels, but then we've got this one, which is an EP, which would have been something that they may have given to executives at Warner Brothers at the time. And in this case, he ended up getting this one. So I believe his signature was added to it. But there's 1 out of 10 of the executive presentation cells. But I would say they're sort of the next rarest up there.
Mhm.
And then the next one, I think we're going to show a Scooby-Doo, which is an AP, which I think everybody's familiar with, which is an artist proof. And those are usually the limited edition ones that they send, they set aside for the artists. And this is, I can't read the number on that one, but again, it's sort of another limited edition AP that we've got here. This is for a lithograph that is another Scooby-Doo. Is that 1 out of 25, maybe?
That is what it looks like. Yeah.
It could
AP
be,
1
yeah.
of 25.
Yeah, and so the cool thing is when you get the number 1, it's like if you're going to get a limited edition print, you might as well get the number 1 if it exists, or even just, some of these are like 7 out of 25. But especially when you get the number 1, that's really cool. And so I would say, it's the closer to get one of these limited edition versions versus the regular edition when you're getting something like this, if you like the artwork on it. And then what's also cool is, and I didn't even know what these were because I would always get what an HC. So this is the hors de commerce. Sorry, my French is not so great, but these. And we'll move on. I think it's the Hong Kong Fooey one. If you could show that next.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is an HC, which is, like I said, hors de commerce. Now, what that means is that this was never intended for sale, and I believe that they were going to give it to people that were involved in the production. In this case, obviously, Takamoto would have designed this, but other people like Hanna or Barbera would have gotten one of these as well. I think these are really of the different types of prints. These are the rarest of the rare. I know I've gotten some portfolios, some of those French portfolios that Frederick Manzanar had done, and I got an HC edition of one of those. I think it was the world's greatest one. And I always wondered, I was like, so what's the difference? Why do they do these? But these are usually the rarest editions of any of the things that they would issue as far as the limited editions. And we've got a number of these HCs that are in the auction here as well. So never could have bought them. Only can get them from people that were involved in the production. And then here, I think, Bill, I just wanted to, so I did mention that there's a number of these black and white sketches. And I think for comic art fans, these are really the coolest things. We've tried to assemble, like I said, really cool sets. I'd be excited, frankly, to get any one of these sets. They're either come in sets of 3 or sets of 4. Here you get pretty much, you get 4 of the Scooby-Doo gang. We've got different ones, but I think somebody had mentioned Velma. She's obviously having a bit of a comeback these days. But yes, you got an authentic Velma sketch here as well. And it's interesting because what I found when I was putting these together is that he would always have these action lines. You can see these kind of like the legs moving, and so you'll see this on a lot of his things, that he always wanted to have the action lines, even though these are static drawings. So in some cases they're all running away from each other or running away from a monster, which we try to put ones that were similar, almost feel like they were part of the same scene together, and offer them that way. But here we got a number of different ones from the Scooby-Doo gang, which I think are very cool. We've got and you'll see a whole bunch of different Scooby designs throughout. I think Scooby's the one that we have the most of, which is great. Sometimes we have all Scooby-Doo. Sometimes we have Scooby-Doo with the gang. So there's plenty of Scooby. And again, if I had to have one thing that, one lot from here, it would be something that had Scooby-Doo in it. And I think there's a ton for people out there to choose from. So you might even get one for, everything starts at $100. So I think you might be able to get, some of these lots even for the $100 bid that comes with it.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this a one-time auction, or are they going to be doing these semi-regularly?
No, this is it. This was everything that was remaining in Iwao's collection. I believe that his wife Barbara had sold some stuff over the years, and I think people could have gotten things from her in the past. So I've seen similar drawings like this. You can go out on eBay right now, and I think people are trying to sell these things for $600 or $700 a piece. So we've put 4 of them together for $100. And if you think about it, if you go to a convention, what you would charge, an artist would charge, I think that's a very reasonable price. And frankly, even at $100 a piece, these are a great bargain. I don't think you can go wrong with these. And also think about it as it's the last sketches that Iwao ever drew of these characters, and that you're getting a chance to own. Some of them are signed. A lot of the ones that we're showing here are not signed, but a lot of them are signed and dated. So if you prefer to have ones that have the signature on it, so take a look through there and you can find different sketches that do have the signatures on it as well. And then here, if you're a fan of Tom and Jerry or Dastardly and Muttley, here's a lot where you can get them together, and there you see the signatures. That's what Iwao's signature would look like on those. So in this case, I couldn't put the exact same size ones together. So the papers, for Tom and Jerry were slightly different, but Dastardly and Muttley, very similar size there. Oh,
Nice to read that, Philip. Thank you.
yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was at WonderCon this weekend and ran into some folks because it's here in Los Angeles, and obviously Hanna-Barbera was here as well as Iwao himself, and it just I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Iwao over the years, but other people do. So I do think that there's probably some great stories out in the community of how great a person he was as well as an artist. But when I look through these, because again, it's the gentleman was he was up in his age when he was drawing these things. He passed away in 2007. I think he was in his 80s, but it doesn't show signs of these drawings are sort of timeless drawings. He still had the ability to draw all these characters up until the end, which is fantastic to see. So there, yeah, we had some from 2003 and some from 2006, and really can't tell the difference between 2003 and 2006. There, still all fantastically drawn. And 2006 would have been, he died, I believe, the first few days of January in 2007. So 2006 would have been the very final drawings that he would have done.
Wow. No, I grew up on Tom and Jerry. So
yeah, they're very cool. Yeah, and that was MGM. So that the MGM cartoons had gotten absorbed, and I think a lot of the MGM people ended up going over to Hanna-Barbera, as well as the characters themselves. I like this one. It's got Space Ghost. Who doesn't like Space Ghost? Exactly. And Captain Caveman, two very different but very cool characters. And then I threw an Elroy and an Astro in there too, so you get one of his characters that he created, which was Astro. But I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have a place in their heart, especially for Space Ghost and maybe Captain Caveman as well. Is one thing that was in the book that I thought was kind of funny that he glanced over was Scrappy-Doo, which it was sort of the question of, did he also create Scrappy-Doo? And he was kind of reluctantly yes, I did create Scrappy-Doo.
Don't blame me.
It was kind of even in the book he's sort of written that way, which was it was when we created Scooby-Doo, as I said, they tried to take everything that was different from the characters today. I think when they tried to create Scrappy-Doo, they took everything they were trying to make him powerful and all these things, and they were trying to fix some of the flaws that were in Scooby-Doo, and it didn't work in his own opinion. So he did create it, but not one of the ones I think he was as proud of as maybe Astro the dog, shall I say.
Funny.
And then here too, Yogi Bear, Boo Boo, Top Cat. I had a Top Cat. I used to live in Indonesia when I was a kid, and I remember being exposed to Top Cat with just this little fuzzy. It was a bubble sticker or something like that. I probably still have it to this day. And when I lived in Indonesia, we would rarely get cartoons, and the Fantastic Four cartoon was out at the time. But then Huckleberry Hound and some of these Hanna-Barberas, we'd only get one cartoon a day, and so whatever came on, you were always just sort of fixed, and waiting to see what came on. But more often than not, I think Huckleberry Hound ended up coming on as far as a cartoon. I'm sure there were some Yogi Bears as well there too. So this is my homage to my youth in this lot, which is all the stuff I was watching when I was in Indonesia. So who out there is a huge Top Cat fan? Anybody?
See, I barely
Anybody else remember Top Cat?
Yeah, I remember watching it, but only barely though. I mean, I can't even think of any of the skits, but I know I watched it, but I was probably 5 or 6 or 7, watching reruns. So it didn't have the same impression on me. I mean, Yogi and Boo Boo, of course, definitely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think Top Cat was, he was a little bit, he was a little bit under. You had to be a sort of really knowledgeable of the Hanna-Barbera characters to sort of love him. My wife's favorite is Morocco Mole. So she's Moroccan, and Adamant. We do have a cool Adamant piece that actually comes with the rough sketchboard. It was one of the Warner Brothers limited edition pieces, and it comes with the original sketch. But there is no Morocco Mole with the Adamant, even though they were part of the Adamant Secret Squirrel show. That was
That's too bad. That would have been one you would have been going after.
Oh my gosh, I would have gone heavy after that one. But everybody's got their favorite character, and I hope out there that this is just a sampling of different characters. So if you have a favorite Hanna-Barbera character, the odds are Iwo drew it. Unfortunately, he didn't do Morocco Mole for me, but hopefully he did the character that you love the most out there, and you can get it. And again, the money's going towards a good cause, so hopefully you can get something. You can't get much comic art for under $1,000 these days. I almost guarantee most of the lots here are going to go for under $1,000, and you get here you get 4 sketches all in one, so you can give them to friends, you can share them, you can keep them, you can frame them all up together, whatever you like. Love the Top Cat Golden books. All right, Mr. Easy Go Lucky is really
yeah. Next
good.
time we do one of these, we're gonna see if
He is
Mr. Easy Go Lucky has a inside track on it, and we'll have him on with us.
Now, Marcus, I'm not sure why we're bringing up Cocaine Bear. Does he look? Does Yogi look a little bit like a little crazy there? I don't know. It's a
He's
little
not
rough.
bearing any teeth, of course, but
John Wick did very well this weekend, but I don't know about Cocaine Bear. So Mission to Mars. So this was one where people may not know this about, but so my very first sort of real job was working at Hershey, the candy company up in Pennsylvania. And it was almost around this time. This is 1991. I think I worked at Hershey in 1992 or 93. And this was Hanna-Barbera. This was a partnership that they had done with ILM and PDI, and this was their first foray into sort of, I guess, sort of the more realistic looking cartoons, if you want to look at it, using the computer generated animation. And this is probably the only time that they ever did it. So this was a set of characters that were from Mars that were going to Earth to find Kubi. And Kubi was candy. And they had a campaign in 1991 around Halloween time where they were going to introduce these as the Mars company sort of mascots. So before the M&Ms, you had these Mission to Mars characters, and they had a special, a Halloween special that they had rolled out called The Last Halloween. And it for people, go out to YouTube and you can watch this thing. It's like a half hour. It's got it's got the guy Richard Bull, I believe, or Richard, drawing a blank on his name. Richard Mole, that's right. He's in it. The woman from Taxi that was married to Danny DeVito is in this thing. It is horrible. It is just an awful, it's almost like an after school special. I guess it was actually in the evening, and it's about these guys. They're coming. They're looking for candy. They're at a in a town that has a candy company, and the water is being dried up and sucked away, and so therefore I don't know why the candy factory needs to go on a water turbine, but there's no candy being produced anymore because it's all being sucked up for some unknown reason. And so they unravel the mystery. You have to go see it. And these are all the characters that are in there. They're actually fun characters, but I don't know what happened. And even when I worked at Hershey, I had never heard that M&M Mars was doing a campaign to essentially establish new themed characters. It just sort of blew by me, even though I was in the candy company at that time. But when I found these, it looks like Iwo was the person that actually designed the characters, and they worked with PDI to animate these. And so we actually have a cool piece. I don't know if I'm going to have Jamie go behind me and actually pull it down here. Everybody say hi to Jamie. He works here at Prop Store as well. He's our
welcome to the team, Jamie.
Lead. Yeah. But we have this cool piece here too, which, outside of the designs there, but this was all signed by all the people that worked at PDI to animate this. So this is kind of a cool piece that shows all the characters. So, another example of another cool piece that you can get that was only obviously given to Iwo and meant a lot to him at the time, but a remnants of this piece of candy history that I even never knew about. But if you're a candy collector, you're never going to find anything else like that anywhere else.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to talk about it, I guess, right? That's why you didn't know about it.
Well, I don't know. You would think the people at Hershey would have, because all we were talking about at the time is when is ET2? Everybody kept bothering us, like, when are they going to do a second ET? Because the Reese's Pieces campaign was so popular, and we were launching the Hershey Nuggets at the time, And I don't know if people know that. So my claim to fame that Easter is I had actually pitched the idea of doing rainbow Twizzlers. And years later, I actually found that they did actually make rainbow Twizzlers after I left Hershey.
They do.
Because yeah, they do make them. They're horrible. Again, not what I had in mind as far as the flavor. Sorry for anybody out there at Hershey. I apologize, but my idea is on the flavor. I don't think they really followed through on the flavors I had in mind. I don't think I even got to pitch the flavors I had in mind. But it had gone out for they had sent it out for marketing testing, and I guess it didn't do so well in the initial testing. But I guess years later they gave it a second chance, and it actually made it into a product. So yes, I guess I could have some co-creation of rainbow Twizzlers, but not sure that's
Yeah, my mom. Well, I loved Twizzlers as a kid, and to this day, every Christmas I get a big bag of Twizzlers from my mom. She will never let me not have Twizzlers for the holidays.
I like the red ones, the black ones.
Yeah, me too.
Not so much. Not so much. Love the red ones though. Love the red ones. And when I worked at Hershey, they used to send all the leftover chocolate that got crushed, and like, if like a shipment got crushed, they couldn't sell it, so they would send it back to the headquarters, and they had a guy, or I don't know if it was a guy, or they had somebody that went around, and twice a day they would fill up the candy bowls on each floor. And so I'd always be like, "Oh, is there a whatchamacallit?" It's like I'd always like Reese's Crunchy was the one I was like, "Do they have Reese's Crunchy?" Because that's like the rare version of the Reese's peanut butter cup, and I always liked that one too. So anyway,
Oh man, what a tough job.
it was cool.
Candy all day long. That's
It was
awesome.
cool. Yeah, I moved from candy into selling, comic art and movie props and all this fun stuff.
Mhm.
So it's been a rough life, Bill. It's been a rough life.
So,
But yeah, so here is another sort of cool project that I stumbled upon as well. I think some folks would recognize the snorks there. But the one in the middle was actually kind of interesting to me because I recognized one character there, which was Hagatha. And those that remember, Hagatha was from the Smurfs.
right.
And what I learned is they had actually planned on doing a spin-off of the Hagatha show. And I believe, I mean, maybe Mr. Go Lucky or Mr. Easy Go Lucky knows out there, but I believe this was the cast that was supposed to be in that cartoon that was never made. So if you were a fan of Smurfs or the Smurf lore, having this panoramic cell here of all the different characters could be a thing that you want to add to your collection there.
Well, let's see. What is the? Yeah, these are okay. And these are just about 2 feet
I believe
long.
the top one is biscuits. Yeah, these are actually pretty long. So these are panoramic in that typically when they would make them this size for an animation cell, if they planned on, sort of panning across the entire show or cell and showing different parts of it as opposed to the standard size. But even these are slightly, some of the biscuits one is a little bit longer because it's got a bunch more characters. So I think these were done, to give the animators a sense of each character and the colors and all the rest of it. So these, I believe that these were, I won't say mass produced, but I believe that they were not unique cells in and of themselves.
Got it. Let's see here. This is actually the last lot from the set of links that you gave me. Yep.
Yeah, so he had a number of different personal drawings as well. So, again, I talked about Iwao's style, and we looked at some of those reference sketches that he had done in some of the art books. And these are, what I understand, he would basically draw wherever he went. And so whenever he was always observing life and always drawing it. So using life models. So we've got a number of different things. A lot of them are from cruises that he would go on. It looks like here he had a series of different sports oriented ones that he was drawing here: baseball, basketball, tennis, etc. And so different themes, different times, and we've grouped those together for people to see. But nice little vignettes of what he was seeing, and a very different style than what you would see out of a Disney animator. But it shows more of his natural style of that. So I do have, like I said, again, these are sort of small, but a little bit longer than. I would say a little bit taller than the sketches that we had for the Hanna-Barbera characters, but they've got tones to them as well. A lot of them do here. So he would use the pencil in some cases. This one doesn't have the toning, but this one does have some toning on it that he would use pencil sketches on top of the ink. And so I think he would try to put these, but very, say Rockwellian type of things that he would try to draw with baseball here, and loves of those things. But we have, a lot of these we put together in sets of like 20 plus. So you get a whole bunch of these different sketches, and it was the people around him, um, and you get real insight into him as an artist and what he was, what he was inspired by in life.
It looks like most of these are signed too.
Yes, most of the personal sketches, strangely enough, not to say that he, ever intended to probably sell any of these. I did see in some of the books and other things they did refer to some of these in the past, but most likely he dated them just so that he would remember what he was doing at the time. That would be my guess, is that he wanted to date it. And we tried to keep the ones, so these are 2002. We tried to keep the ones from the different years together. And actually, when he filed them, because they came in files, and he would mark them, these are the ones from 2003, these are the ones from 2004. So again, I think it was for him, it was a way of remembering different moments in his own life and the things that were going on around him at that time.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a fan, I mean, this would be a unique thing to have, certainly. Very, very personal to him.
Yeah, and again, very inexpensive. So a lot of these, they're all starting at $100. I think they're still waiting to get some bids from some true art fans out there, and I wanted the folks here on Comic Art Fans to see these. Frankly, if it was me, I think I would say a lot of people are going to bid on the animation cells because of those things that are pop with color and you put on the wall. Everybody's used to seeing those, but I think these black and white drawings, whether they be the personal drawings or the sketches he's done of the different Hanna-Barbera characters, those are the gems in this auction. There are a lot of them, so there's a lot for you to choose from. But I would encourage everybody out there to take a closer look at the different things here, and especially if he doesn't have a bid, just think about it this way too. It's like this is your opportunity, for $100 to give $100 to charity, and you get in some cases 20 or 30 drawings. Where else can you get that kind of deal? And a way of taking home. They're all signed by Takamoto as well. So just a great remembrance of a great artist. And maybe just like I had a great time delving through the drawings into his life. You too can own a piece of this and sort of stare at it and sort of understand a little bit more about what Iwao's life was all about.
So is the scholarship for one of the like a particular discipline at Ringling?
As we were writing the press release for this, I believe it's for animation. So I think it's to help with that. I'm not quite exactly sure how the scholarship fund works, but I believe it is for people that want to go into the animation program.
In the animation department. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, this is so the auction starts ending next Tuesday. Is that correct?
It does. The auction ends on the 7th.
So I was just checking. It said 7 days and what? Let me see. Seven
Was
days,
it the 4th?
17 and a half hours right now.
Okay, so we got a week. Yeah, I do remember that we wanted to schedule this out so that we have it. It's been going on for. We've actually been going on for 3 weeks just to get the word out to different people. Obviously, we want people that are alumni of Ringling to participate in this as well. But I think it's something. I think this Comic Art Fans audience is really the people that I'm hoping that will sort of stand up and get something here. I hope a lot of people. I hope to see a lot of these in the CAF galleries and the moving forward. Hopefully they won't be on eBay and people won't be trying to sell a lot of the sketches for $600-700, but that's that's up to people if they want. But I just think that especially the black and white drawings, you could frame up all 4 of those. They'd look fantastic on there. Or it's something you can give to a friend of yours that you want to share your love of comic art with them. Not everybody loves all the stuff, sort of all the superhero or the pinup girls or other things that people like. But I think almost everybody loves these Hanna-Barbera characters. Like, who doesn't love Scooby-Doo? So I think you could buy a set of these, split them up, give them away for holiday gifts or birthday gifts, and share, and people will have something that they're going to cherish to go along with it too. So I love these. But yeah, there's 145 lots in here. There are things like I think we've got some toys. He actually helped design, I guess, some of the toys. Comes with a letter from Warner Brothers. there are or not necessarily, there are Academy Awards brochures for when he went to the awards. There's actually an award that he won as well. One of the things that I think is lot 24, I believe there's some personal items of him. So I think we've got things like his, here we've got this, which is like his Hanna-Barbera ID. So you can kind of see that this things like this ID that are here. So Hanna-Barbera HB production company. But there's actually letters from George Bush that are in there as well. I guess that he had gotten from the White House 2 years in a row. I guess they were Christmas cards or something like that. So even things like that. So if you're if you're a fan of the White House or whatever, Iwo was recognized by the president at the time too. So it's kind of neat to find those kind of personal things that are hidden in here as well. We try to make sure that the family got to keep, or the foundation got to keep the stuff that maybe too personal. I think there was things like he had gotten awards from the city of Los Angeles, which I thought were pretty cool, but they did keep a few things. But for the most part, most of the things that we thought collectors would want were included in this auction.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice sets of those illustrations in here.
Yeah, calendars. There's some style guides, I believe, for Hanna-Barbera at the time that you can also go through. So, I think especially for fans of Hanna-Barbera, I haven't seen too many auctions where you get to sort of delve into it. I think there are different artists, but to have a dedicated auction for one artist, there's things that were given to him too. I think there were some like lithograph sets that were given by other artists to him that we have in there, but a lot of just mostly his sketches in there. Some portraits of him, as you see there. If you want that, there's one for his 60th birthday. Again, another personal thing. But if you're a fan of the man or his legacy, some very personal things that can remind you of him.
Yeah, these are really nice. I didn't look through all of them earlier. I didn't realize you've got some of these sketches have multiple characters on them as well. So yeah, this is.
They do, yeah. There's another jam piece that was done by a bunch of different cartoonists, all contributed to it. Yeah, and just to sum up, if you go to propstore.com/Takamoto, that's where you can find the auction, or just go to propstore.com. You go to our homepage, you can find the auction there. Bidding starts on all these for at $100. There's no minimum. There is a buyer's premium of 25%, so that will, when you bid, that'll be added in there. And we do our own in-house shipping anywhere in the world, so you can participate whether you're in the U.S. or elsewhere. We'll ship that. A lot of these are framed, so we'll have to ship those securely. If you have any questions about shipping, especially for the frame pieces, I'd encourage you. There's a get a shipping quote button on our platform, so go ahead and use that, and they can give you a specific quote to your location, just to make sure that there's no surprises in what you're going to be charged for shipping on any of this stuff. But a lot of the smaller stuff, like those 4 sketches, those are easy enough to sort of throw into an envelope and mail off to you. So hopefully the shipping charges aren't going to be super crazy.
So all that's kind of seamless when when you win an auction.
Yeah,
yeah, because some of them aren't as easy to get through, but yours is pretty end to end. Somebody can pretty much handle their whole transaction with the shipping and
yeah, and a couple things that are a little different about PropStore to know. We do offer interest-free payment plans as well. So if you want to buy some stuff and you want to put it on that, we offer up to 3 months for auction purchases that are interest-free. So you put a down payment down and then you pay it off over the next 3 months, which I think is great. There's nobody else out there that I know of that offers interest-free payments, and you can use credit cards up to $25,000. And we don't charge for the credit cards too, which is also sort of unheard of at the moment. So those are all what we consider conveniences to our customers that make it easier. We want to make it as easy as possible to buy from PropStore, so you can buy over time, and then we'll send it to you once you've finished paying off everything.
Yeah, no, those are. Here's that up and Adam.
Yeah, I love that. Why don't you show that one? That one's kind of cool because it comes with the pencil rough on it, so you can see it. Looks like they actually, when they did the final version of it, they blew up the Adam Ant portion of it a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can see the evolution of the drawing, but that's what Iwo's original thing is. And I believe that Jetsons poster that Mr. Easy Go Lucky worked on is also in the poster, is in the auction. Maybe we should show that so that we can everybody see his fine work. But I believe Iwao, again, I forget if he was a producer or director, or he had a pretty key role in that Jetsons. But there it is down there. That's the slightly faded version. If you go to the poster lot, there's a better version, but you can at least get a sense of that. Is that it, Mr. Easy Go Lucky? Is that your poster that you worked on?
We'll find out.
We'll find out. Yes.
Number one Marvel fan says that Prop Store is awesome on plans, down payment, then 3 months to pay. I've used it many, many times. Is that something that they have to set up in advance?
No,
as far as
no.
saying that they want to take the 3 month option, or it's just once it's closed, you can say, I want to take the 3 month option?
No, I think it's once it's closed, when you check out, it actually gives you the options of how you want to check out for this. You can obviously pay right away, and we can ship it off to you. You know, just call us up if you need it the next day. You have to rush it. We can help make it happen. And I would also encourage you, if you guys have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm here every day. It's chuck@propstore.com. Happy to talk to you about anything comic art related or this particular auction. I'm happy to take it, but we do have customer service and other thing in place. But yeah, hopefully it's I think compared to other platforms out there, we try to make it as easy to use as possible. When the auction ends, it's a timed auction ending, so each lot ends a minute away from each other, and then we actually started this with extended bidding at the end, so there's no sniping necessarily that goes on where you have to do that, or you don't have to worry about it counting down, but it'll extend 5 minutes if somebody puts a bid on it within the last, I believe, the last 5 minutes of the auction, so that you have some time. If you're looking at multiple different lots, you can sort of juggle between those two and figure out which one you want to bid on more if they happen to be right next to each other, which we find to be a good one. This piece right here, Bill, is actually one of my favorite pieces. It looks like pencils, and it's actually a lithograph of the pencils, and it was done for a lifetime achievement tribute that they had done at the Museum of Television and Radio for William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. But when you look at it, I think there's 25 different signatures in there. A lot of these are the voices of a lot of the characters, and unfortunately, some of these people, obviously Hanna and Barbera, have passed away. But you've got people like Casey Kasem that are in there. Gary Owens is, I believe, right above Space Ghost, who was the voice of Space Ghost. And then if you look at it, there's a whole bunch of different voice actors that are represented here. Some that are still with us, but a lot of them that aren't with us. So I think it's even Tony Curtis, and you see Tony Curtis at the bottom there. That's in a Flintstones outfit. He even signed it as well. So you've got a lot of rare signatures there. And then, of course, Iwao's signature at the bottom, dated 2000. But this is one of my favorite pieces. It's actually sitting next to me over here. If we can look at it over here. This is a very large piece. Bill, I don't know if you want to go. Yeah. So this is what it looks like over here on the easel. But a very large piece, a nice gold frame around it. I believe it's actually plexi, so it's not going to necessarily break. But a beautiful piece. And I'll say that if I had to own one of them, just for not only do you kind of get Iwao's pencils reproduced there, but you also got all these great signatures in it. It's a super rare piece that I'd never seen before. It's numbered out of 15. This is number 10 out of 15. My gut is that they would have just given it to the people that would have attended that event. There may be another one where anybody that signed it would have gotten a different edition as well, but it's not one of the most, not a very common print that anybody's got. I like the Dave. So those there's a Dave 10 discount joke there. So those that don't know, Dave Mandel, who is obviously a very large comic collector, we do advertise on the stuff that dreams are made of. If anybody hasn't listened to that podcast, I'd encourage you guys to listen to that. But Propster is a sponsor of that, and we do allow for, if you do find something on our website, there actually is I'll actually tip you on something that's really cool. There's an Iron Man page out there. I believe it's a Don Heck Iron page. It's currently out on PropStore's website. It's a really good bargain. You can buy it if you use the Dave 10 code. You get 10% off your purchase as well. But listen to the podcast too. There's another code you can use if you're a fan of Ryan Condal, who is the showrunner for a little known show called House of the Dragon. But they talk about collecting. I think the last episode was actually about Ryan was interested in comic art collecting, and so they're sort of, Calvin Mao made a guest appearance as well to try to tell him, in today's world, how do you how would you go about sort of going after some of the favorite comic art pieces in today's world where the prices are a little bit higher than they were 20 years ago when a lot of us got started on this?
I hope you mentioned comic art fans at least once.
I'm trying to think if they mentioned. I believe they did actually mention comic art fans, but I'd have to go back, and you guys can go.
I won't
back
hold
and
it against them if he
as well.
doesn't.
But it's an interesting episode, and they delve into not only movie prop and television prop collecting, posters, and other things. They really look at it from the lens of being a collector in general. I think they expose you to movie props, which Prop Store obviously sells a lot of. But they talk about, I think they even had George R.R. Martin on one who collected like little war figures as well, which was kind of neat. I see Mr. Easy Go Lucky. Can I pick up auction wins at the Prop Store? Yep, we're located here in Valencia, California. So if you know where Six Flags is here in Los Angeles, we're located right by that. If you arrange in advance, we can have it ready. If you pick up, I will tell you have to pay California sales tax, which is 9.5%. But it can be a lot easier, especially for larger pieces that are framed like that, to make sure that they get there safely. And that's what I would actually recommend picking up at the office if you can be so lucky. And happy to have you over and say hello if you make it.
Awesome. So any parting words here? I mean, obviously this auction's ending next Tuesday. What's on the near horizon for the next prop store auction?
Well, yeah, I sort of alluded to some of those things. We for those that are fans right now, what our big auction that we've got, or a couple auctions that we've got going on right now, we've got an auction going on for Maria Doyle Kennedy, who is associated with Outlander, as well as some other projects. She has donated a few things, so we have a charity auction going on for her. But we also are helping the Young and the Restless celebrate their 50th anniversary. So they've actually given us a number of items, and the actors signed a whole bunch of stuff that we have for the Young and the Restless. So if you're a fan, or you have somebody in your family that's a fan, this is a rare opportunity, because frankly, they've never, they don't really sell many of their props or costumes. It's the first time they've sort of gone into the archives. And you also have the opportunity to win if you want to come out here to Los Angeles and do a set visit and be on the set and watch a taping of an episode, we're auctioning that off. But for folks, the things that are a little bit closer to comic art, as I mentioned, Gray Smith, who is well known in the poster world, he is our poster expert here now out of Prop Store Los Angeles, and he will be hosting our first Los Angeles-based poster auction, which very frankly is shaping up to be a fantastic event. There are some amazing posters. If you're into rare posters, we will have some of the rarest of the rare posters in that auction. It's amazing what Gray has been able to pull together. So there's going to be about 1,000 posters. That's going to kick off on, we're going to be sort of making the big announcement about that, I believe, on April the 19th. So stay tuned for that. And then that will be running through May. We'll make it available. We will be putting out a full color catalog for that. If people want to order one of those will be available out on our website. And then, as I mentioned, in June, we're going to be doing our large Los Angeles-based entertainment memorabilia live auction, which will have a ton of great things. So this is where, last year, I think we had the infamous X-Wing, which sold for $2.375 million. I think a lot of people, especially if you were listening to Dave Mandel's podcast, it was in the news. I think everybody heard that Dave Mandel was the underbidder on that. And he sort of recounts on his podcast his journey of thinking about bidding on that, and losing that, unfortunately. Sorry to Dave on that. But that's the type of thing that we would have in the sort of the big summer auction, as well as, like I said, there will be a number of production art pieces. I know we've got things from like Harry Potter. I think we've got things from, we'll always have something from a lot of movies and television that you have. And there will be some comic art in there as well. But that'll take place. The catalog will come out in May, the end of May, and the auction will take place from June 28th through the 30th. We'll be having an event at, I guess it's a little early. I won't say where the event will be, so to save some of the prizes, but we'll have a live event where you can preview the auction. You can come see these things in person, talk to fellow collectors. We had a big event last year as well, where we had the actors, two of the actors from Aliens movie, that were just talking about their experiences on that. It had some great Aliens props that we showcased as well.
Yeah, it sounded like a fun experience. I remember that.
Yeah, it was, and we'll try to create an opportunity for, now that cons are back and other things, we realize that, this is a chance for people to really get together at one of these types of events. So, sure. We look forward to unveiling that in the months to come. And then for the back half of the year, we've got some other fun auctions. We've got another one that'll actually happen. We'll announce a little later this month. That'll be a fun 80s auction. So if you're into 80s memorabilia. I can't say what it is, but it's going to be a lot of fun for people who
Awesome.
like that kind of stuff. So.
All right. Well, Chuck, it's always fun. I guess we'll should plan on getting together late May or early June to preview any of the art pieces that are in that in your next auction.
We would love to. We'd love to.
That would be great. And but yeah, so I'm glad we got to take a look at this. And as everybody said, you know, this really is something that benefits the future generation of artists that are attending Ringling by offering a scholarship. So it is a very worthy cause. And I, you know, share this with your friends who are interested in animation art. If they're not familiar with this, please let everybody that you know who might be, you know, let them know about it, because it is, you know, it's going to a great scholarship at a, you know, this school, Ringling was one of the top schools, you know, art schools when I was a kid. When I was looking at places to go, is Ringling or RISD, and it almost still is kind of like that's your two choices if you really want to go to a place that's going to give you a great education, and it's a wonderful school. So thank you, Chuck, and everybody at Prop Store for doing this with us tonight. And again, I'll be running some PR for the auction leading up to it as well. So you'll be seeing a few other announcements coming out before the auction starts to close next Tuesday.
All right. Yeah. And thanks everybody out there. Thanks in advance. If you guys do place a bid, we really, really appreciate it. And the Takamoto Foundation, as well as the school, really appreciate you donating back to the cause. And like I said, you'll get something cool that you can cherish in your collection as well for, you know, frankly, not a lot of money compared to what we're normally paying for comic art these days. So
very true.
Yeah, it's true. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We really appreciate it. And Bill, thanks for making the time.
My pleasure. And of course, everybody will see me in the next 5 minutes over at my next show with a heritage preview. So thanks again, Chuck. I'll talk to you again soon.
Say hi to